Hey, so another abysmal week in terms of me making YouTube videos, but I have an excuse. I have an excuse this week. This week I'm writing a book, which is why I have not been making as many YouTube videos. But that's my excuse. It doesn't mean it's technically true, because I have an excuse for not writing the book, and that's because my wrist is still broken. So what all in all it means is that I've been watching Outlander, which actually isn't very good. I don't even like it. I'm just watching it. I don't even know why. I guess it's kind of entertaining. It's like, I don't know, it's just one of those things that I'm watching it, I'm thinking, it doesn't actually need to be this much sex in this. It's a bit weird, you know? Anyway, whatever. You could argue it's historical, so therefore educational. But I don't even like it that much. But I'm watching it still. The reason I'm watching it is because I've run out of the Durrells to watch, which is actually much more up my street, because it's just like really quite, I don't know. It's not too much sex in it. There's not much violence. It's just, you can fall asleep in front of it. Anyway, what am I talking about? All right, questions. Felix. Hello, Tabs. I have a question about if anorexia is a migration response. Why did I want to commit suicide? Then try and attempt it, but something stopped me. Hope you understand. Yeah, so when I say anorexia is a migration response, I'm talking about like the actual sort of what some people's bodies do in response to energy deficit. They sort of unleash this desire to migrate, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the migration response. Now, if you think about animal migration and what human migration would have been like, that was designed to last not a very long time. You know, we would migrate for weeks, maybe months, but it's designed to be a sort of short crisis response. And it's designed to be shut off by migrating to the place where all the food is and everybody feasting. And then the migration response turns off because you come out of energy deficit. So the thing is that migration response, the design that would have been there and in our genetics and all that stuff to help us evolve, would not have been designed to go on long term. The issue, and why it gets more complicated nowadays, is because our migration response can be activated due to energy deficit, but in our present modern day environment, there's no shut off, because we're actually having a famine response, but there's no famine. There's no event to conclude. It just keeps going and going and going, because our culture is the reason that we went into energy deficit, not for everyone, but for many. So what happens is something that's supposed to have just been designed to kick on, get you through a migration to where the food is, and then kick off again in a matter of weeks, is kicking on and then going on and on and on and on. And then when something persists, when something we are doing persists, that's when neural pathways start to get built. And that's when we actually start to have an issue. And that's why I talk about neural rewiring being critical for full recovery, because for the vast majority of us who have anorexia, it lasts more than 3 weeks, doesn't it? It's going on for months and months and months. There is no shut-off point. In fact, our culture encourages us to continue with it, to the point when then it's so hardwired that we can't shut it off, or at least we feel that we can't. And this is when lots of other shit can hit the fan. So Felix, in your example, you know, your body wasn't designed to be migrating for however long you've been migrating for. And so your body is kind of exhausted by this. And that's where depression can come in. And other people, different people react differently to the exhaustion of living in what was supposed to be an emergency short-term response for years and years, and in some cases decades and decades. And so your suicidality, your depression, whatever that's going to be related to, usually, often, not always, related to your eating disorder and the state that the eating disorder has left you in physically and mentally. But it's not directly like a migration response thing necessarily. I hope that makes sense. All right. So Samir says, could you please talk about how to deal with time and portion size in recovery? The way to deal with time and portion size, in terms of time, eat as often as possible. And in terms of portion size, eat as much as possible. Thanks, Felix. Thanks, Emmy. Idna. How can I get unstuck and truly start recovery? Unstick yourself. Every day is the same and I can't deal with it anymore. I feel exhausted and utterly hopeless. So go back to what I was saying again, like neural pathways being formed, and then we enter Groundhog Day, Groundhog Month, Groundhog Year for some of us. And geez, it's tiring and depressing and can make you feel hopeless, because it is hopeless. And because of the neural pathways and the fear responses that have been set up and the fear of weight gain that has been set up and all of those things, you feel like you can't get out of it. But you can get out of it. But the only way to get out of it is to do the things that your brain thinks that you need to be fearful of at this point. And that's difficult, yeah, but it's actually not as exhausting as continuing to do the things that is set up by your eating disorder neural network day in, day out. That is exhausting. I actually found that recovery was far less exhausting than having an eating disorder was on a day-to-day basis. Of course, your fear of making the decision to fully recover, your brain's like, no, don't do that. And it's actually making the decision to just fucking do it that's the hardest part. Once you actually do fucking do it, you're like, this is kind of fun. Quite like it. It's quite relaxing, actually. So my answer to you is going to be just fucking do it. All right. It's Mineo. I'm scared that with my extreme hunger, I messed up my hunger cues and will gain forever, said every person with anorexia ever. A family member is still unhealthy in terms of weight. Unhealthy according to whom? Unhealthy according to judgment? Not going to find out. Hunger cues that are similar to my own extreme hunger. That's probably because your family member is also restricting food. You can have a restrictive eating disorder at any weight. And because people look at your family member and go, your weight's too high, via my judgment, your weight's too high, that family member's probably restricting food. So therefore, your family member's body is probably trying to urge your family member to eat a ton of food, to binge, because binging is the response to restriction, the genius response to restriction by your body. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that your family member who is being judged at being in too large a body is restricting food and therefore wanting to binge in the same way that you want to binge because you're restricting food. So I'm scared that with my extreme hunger, I messed up my hunger cues. And that exemplifies the belief that you can't trust your body to manage your food intake and your weight. And that is a huge belief system and a really important belief system to overcome if you want to recover from restrictive eating disorder. Because recovery looks like you having the freedom that is associated with not trying to micromanage your body, food intake and your body's weight. And the reason that you don't feel that you have to micromanage your body's food intake and your body's weight and guess whether your body's doing it right and ever be in there, well, I have to step in because I don't know, my body might just be hungry forever and my extreme hunger might just go on forever because my body doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. Freedom in recovery is not thinking like that. And the way that you get yourself to not think like that is by rewiring the belief that you can't trust your body. Because just sort of saying that, I'm scared that my extreme hunger messed up my hunger cues and I'll gain forever, is basically a way of saying, I'm scared that my body doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. Because why would your body want to do that? You know, okay, so let's food, water, oxygen. God, I hope you guys have read Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover. Food, water, oxygen, I outline in that book as the 3 things that the body needs in order to survive. If one of those things is in deficit, the body will focus on that thing and try and get as much of that thing in as possible. So say, for example, and you can try this at home actually, if you hold your breath, try holding your breath for as long as possible. When you hold your breath for a long time, your brain will start to obsess about breathing. In the same way as if when you don't eat enough food for a long time, your brain will start to obsess about eating food. Now, when you stop holding your breath, your brain will gasp for air, right? And the reason it's gasping for air is because it's trying to get as much air in as possible. It's not gasping for air for fun or because it just decided that was a cool thing to do. It's gasping for air out of necessity and desperation. Now, when your body has enough air, after you've gasped for long enough and your body has enough air, your body doesn't just keep on gasping for air for the fun of it. Your body returns to normal breathing. Because guess what? Gasping for air is not optimal for your body. That is not an optimal functioning. It's an emergency state functioning. In the same way that binge eating and having extreme hunger is not optimal for your body. It doesn't want to do that. It's doing it because desperate times call for desperate measures, and it's been backed into a corner and it's starving. So it is doing what it has to, and that involves in taking a huge amount of food all at once. Now, when you come out of energy deficit, your body will cease gasping for food, because that's what basically binge eating is. Binge eating is gasping for food. And when your body no longer needs to gasp for food, guess what? It won't do it. So the moral of the story is your body knows exactly what it's doing, and the best thing that you can do is get the fuck out the way and stop thinking about it and stop obsessing over it, stop wondering about the future, and just hand all of this big problem of how much to eat and how much weight to gain and all of that, just hand it over to your body and get out the way and just do what your body says for you to do, which I'm sure is going to be eat a fuck ton of food. In the same way, if you held your breath, what your body would say to do would be gasp. So let's trust the body. Trust your body. It knows what it's doing. They've been around for thousands and thousands of years at this point. They know how to eat and breathe and live. So let me get on with it. That's about all I've got time for.